Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
Hi everybody, we're here today interviewing Chris Stockley from The Dingoes and Axiom, and we are going to go through his career from beginning to end. And how are you, Chris? Welcome to Laneway Talks.
Good. Vincent, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. So, where did you grow up? Were you in Australia? Were you overseas? And what was the story?
I'm from Winchester in Hampshire, England, and my family migrated to Australia around about 1964. Not the best timing in the world at that time because England was going through just started the swinging London thing with the huge bands like the Beatles and the Stones, the Who, Small Faces, all that was happening, and I loved music so much.
How old were you when you came over?
16.
So you'd already learnt the guitar. You were playing the guitar. You're proficient.
Oh no, not really. I didn't really play until I got here. And I'll tell you the story for that is that I was through going back through history like with Elvis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Eddie Cochran, those sort of guys. I discovered that rock and roll come from rhythm and blues, which come from the blues. So I discovered all the blues artists, like going back to Muddy Waters and through right back to Robert Johnson and those guys, and became a bit of a blues nut. And once again, the timing was kind of good because that was the driving force behind that English revival. It was mainly rhythm and blues that the Stones and the Beatles and those bands were covering.
Would you consider Elvis Presley too? Getting into that or more poppy blues?
Oh, no, look, Elvis was incredible because he just had the whole spectrum of it. He had the country thing, the gospel thing, the blues thing. He was, you can't overestimate the influence that guy had on the English bands and indeed American bands. But, he was just sensational.
Yeah, so you get to Australia and you decide you're loving, music, and what do you decide? Do you want to pick up the guitar? This is what I want to do. I'm really loving this.
Yeah. Well, when I got to Australia, I was very disappointed to find that there were no R&B clubs and there were no R&B bands either. It was a little bit behind at that stage, and I remember the dances that my aunt would take me to were called 60-40 dances, and it was like ballroom dancing, and maybe the band would play a couple of rock and roll songs and people could jive, but it was pretty sad.
So, really. Well, hold on, let's just go, you're going to dances, but hold on, you're 16, right?
Yeah.
What was the drinking age here, 21? I think it might have been.
21.
Yeah.
I don't know what the drinking thing. I don't recall.
You couldn't have got into a club, could you? So you were getting in underage, weren't you?
Well, could be. I have no idea of the licensing rules at that stage, but I know you couldn't drink in a pub if you were 18 or something. But they used to take me to these clubs, and I wasn't very impressed with the music.
Yeah.
But that's what led me to get a guitar and start teaching myself mainly R&B stuff and some old rock and roll, and because there was nowhere to go and see these people that I used to like, I decided to create my own music. And for a couple of weeks, I worked at the Age, and I'm running into John Pugh, who went on to greater things. Yeah. And he and I formed a little duo. He taught me about Bob Dylan. I taught him about Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson. And we had a little duo, which was good. And then with the Stones starting to become big, we decided to follow that road and get the drums and the bass, electric guitars and amps, and became the Roadrunners.
I often, because, I'm a little bit younger than you, and I often think about those bands, let's call them mid-60s, and you're going, we've got our amps and whatever. But what was it like? You just had a couple of amps, no such thing as a PA system? So you just put your microphone through the amp? I mean, what was it?
When we were rehearsing, we'd do something like that. But I know you could hire little tiny PAs.
Yeah.
And they were totally inadequate, but that's all there was, really. And I guess in the venues, like Q Club, those big town halls, they would have had to have someone put in a somewhat bigger PA than what we were getting. But I must say they still were very, very small.
Yeah, very primitive PAs too, weren't they?
I mean, extremely primitive.
Yeah.
But it'd be just 4 channels, like 4 vocals.
Yeah.
No one was miking up equipment in those days. That came later.
Yeah.
But
so therefore, where do you go to from there? So you got the duet going, you're doing a bit of work there. What are you moving to next?
We get the Roadrunners, 4-piece band, and then we discovered no one was really writing songs in those days. People were copying mainly the English bands of the day, and we noticed that every time we'd learn a couple of songs pinched from Chess Records, it would be on the next Stones album or the next Animals album or something like that. So we said, we've got to move on here. So we discovered soul music, and then we started pinching Hold 'Em Coming and Respect and, or Sam and Dave, Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett, Midnight Hour.
Yeah.
And that's where we went. And it was then during that time that we first decided, finally awakening to the fact that the Beatles and the Stones were now writing their own songs and not covering other people's, that we should do that. So we kind of attempted doing originals, which I said every band was going through the same thing at the time.
It's a completely different mindset. If you take it forward 50, 60 years, and if you want to pursue your career in the music business, you write originals. You don't do cover work, right?
No,
but
right.
You go back to then, and as you said, we were doing all that, and we thought, well, we've got to start writing our own material, and it wasn't that common. Is that what you're saying back then?
Yeah. That's right. Everyone was happy to just cover the Beatles or the Stones or whatever. But it was obviously the Beatles opened that door. I mean, all their hits were basically their own songs, as opposed to earlier when people were just covering records.
Yeah.
But every band was doing it.
So you got the Roadrunners, and what happened?
Then that morphed into Campact, and that's when we got into the soul thing and writing our own songs.
Yeah.
Then that got a bit poppy for me, a bit too teeny bop sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I got offered the gig with Axiom, with John Moody and Brian Cadd, Glenn Shorrock and Doug Lavery, who had all been in huge bands. Glenn in Twilight, John and Brian in the Group, and Dougie from the Valentines.
Yeah.
Now, all those guys that had huge hit records. Campact had, I think, a couple of hits. One of them was a cover of James and Bobby Purify's I'm Your Puppet. So we did lots of TV and we were straight in the studio and recording with Axiom. So we had no problem. We were like a huge band overnight.
Yeah.
Because of all the members passed. We had no trouble getting work or getting record deals or getting our faces on television.
Well, of course, I'll just butt in there and say, so no problem getting record deals. And Axiom, to this day, I know, still get a lot of streaming and get a lot of video streaming. But as we know, the deals back in those days were an absolute shocker. And you'd be lucky, some people are even on 0.5%. A lot of the contracts I've seen from the early 70s are 3.5% of wholesale. Wholesale's a debatable price. And so you're getting signed and, you're recording and you're having hit songs, but were you making any money?
Not a lot, but I think once again you look at a band like Axiom and they probably got a better deal than what you're talking about simply on the strength of the previous members' success. I mean, the group had unknown amounts of number one hits and the Twilight's the same. I think the Valentines by that stage had 2 or 3 number ones. And Dougie also played with Doug Parkinson. So, they're all, and even my humble self, I did have a couple of hits. And I think, we were probably lucky. We would have got a better deal than most people. But like you say, even the good deals were pretty bad back then. So there wasn't a great deal of money to be made, although I should say it's probably more than what you get out of Spotify. So.
We'll get to the digital. We'll get to that and we'll discuss that. But, I get pretty pent up and a bit emotional about, some of the deals that were going on, and the people that were actually creating the music were simply feeding the corporations that were then on selling it and their lifestyles. But the guys that created it were the bottom dwellers in a sense, you know. Okay, there's one or two or three or four that really made the, you know, let's Elvis Presley or the Rolling Stones, but, you know, it really, and we will get to a bit of that. So therefore, what happens with Axiom? You're having a few hits here, and what do you decide to do?
I think we racked up 2 or 3 hits, and we decided, like every other band in Australia, to go to England. Glennon had been there with the Twilights and broken up. Don and Brian had been there with the group and broken up. And the Masters Apprentices did the same thing. So Axiom went over full of hope. And we were quite lucky in getting a record deal. We got a fairly good deal with Warner Brothers in England. Sadly, we didn't gig much.
Why is that? So you've been signed by a major label. You're obviously being paid, and you're recording, but you're not gigging much. I mean,
yeah, well, that's exactly. The record took a long time. First of all, to get signed and then get in the studio, make the record took a real long time, far too long, and we weren't really wanted to work. I mean, the record company didn't want us to work really until we'd got the record out and there was some point to touring, and therefore they'll probably give you some tour support or something like that.
Yeah.
But, and for myself personally, I would have preferred, I would be quite happy to go along to the local pub and play for nothing, you know, a few bucks or a few pints.
Yeah.
But some of the guys had already done that with their previous bands, and they decided that was kind of tough. If you come from a level like the Twilights and the group, and then you find yourself carting your own gear in the snow and also your support from someone else, you know, and they said, no, it's not a good thing. So we decided to play the record company way, and okay, let's wait till the record's out and do it. Sadly, that had us living in a house very close proximity to each other, and then when the wives and girlfriends arrived from Australia and shifted in, it kind of split the band in that it wasn't the 5 guys hanging out and drinking and going to shows anymore.
Yeah.
It was people going out with their wives and girlfriends, and it kind of, you know.
I tend to understand that totally, in that as much as whether it be on the female side with a male or whether it be a female band with a male, once the partners get involved, this is my opinion, the concentration starts to wane, people start to drift, you know, and if a band is together, if the cohesion of the band's there and they're writing and being creative, you want no distractions, and that comes out in the music. So how many times have we seen a supergroup album come out and you go, this is going to be absolutely terrific, 4 supergroup members, but they've never really played together before, and you can hear it in the music in the sense that it doesn't gel. It's just 4 great musicians. So therefore Axiom are starting to feel the pressure, and is it split time?
Well, we came back just as we completed the album. They got a single together and put that out in Australia to give us a bit of warm-up time.
Yeah.
So we come back and did a tour right around Australia, and My Baby's Gone was the hit from that. And that got to the number 2 or 3 in the charts here. And then we went back to England to sort of follow it up. And I think the rot had set in, and we're all just basically sick of living in one house together and not doing anything much.
The relationship burnout had essentially started to set in.
Well. Yeah, but that was the smart thing. When I went to America with the Dingoes, apart from we first moved over as a band, when we had our partners join us, we all had our own places. Yeah. And that kept the band together, because when the 5 guys are together, they're together. And when they're with their wives, they're with their wives and so on. But, that was much better thought out. But unfortunately,
that was the end of Axiom. So then it goes on to the Dingoes, does it?
Well, what was left of Axiom, the dregs, we've got a gig on a boat, played our way back to Australia. And then we were on our separate ways. No one really did much of import at that particular time.
Yeah.
And then I was just, playing around in various bar bands. And so I got the call from Broderick, and Broderick and Karen I'd met back in the blues days of Chicago.
Yeah.
And they'd seen me play and I'd seen them play, and they said they're going to do this band. So I said, that sounds really good, because it's pretty hardcore R&B, blues and country music.
Well, was Broderick
quite pure pop.
Was Broderick still in Carson or not?
He was either still in it or just out of it. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, gotcha.
And Karen had just come from country radio, so he already had a couple of hits under his belt.
Yeah,
like he'd written with Greg Quill, like Gypsy Queen and Winter Song.
Yeah,
Broderick had a hit with Carson, Boogie.
Yeah,
my history anyway.
Yeah,
but and that was kind of great, because it was, I felt that's where I should have been in that band, because it was exactly the music I liked at the time.
It's interesting that you you classed it as what, blues and country and some rock. Whereas for me, as a punter, and the Dingoes were probably that first Dingoes album. Probably got played to death on my turntable, and I classed you simply as a really good country rock band with more Australian country than rock, and the rock just sat under the bed of the music and gave it that class act. That was for me. And it I didn't really bring the blues into it. It just had that Australiana country to it, but with a rock base.
So that's what you do. You don't sort of just go out and copy the stuff that you learned from. You incorporate it into the stuff you write. And the other thing I point out, a lot of people love that record, and we all do. It's got all kinds of awards and this, that, and the other. It gave us a couple of hit records. But I was a bit disappointed in that fact that if you saw the Dingoes live, it was a really hard rock pub band.
Yeah.
And the country thing was like one facet.
Yeah.
But on that album, you get the idea that it was much more laid back, and it wasn't. It was actually quite a bloody heavy rock band. And but to this day, if you hear any Dingoes on the radio, it's usually way up west or Boy on the Run, which is all very well, but they weren't really typical of what we were doing at the time. I suppose a better idea is if you ever got your hands on live at the station, which is like, wow,
Well, if you look at Sydney Ladies, and that was yours. Sydney Ladies was one, wasn't it? Was that one? Yeah. And if you listen to that, it's a rock. Essentially, what you said, it's a rock song, but for some reason, it's got a touch of country in it. I don't know how. I mean, I think basically the Dingoes established a new form of country rock music. I really do.
I'd agree with that.
And you set the standard. And I remember reading in Duke prior to you guys going to America, and I was an avid, I used to dream myself, about the music business, and I went through, I think, maybe 10 Australian acts and what to expect in the next 12 months. And the number one success story was going to be the Dingoes in America. And that was it. That was at the top. And I remember it really clearly. Who was going to make it in the next 12 months? The Dingoes in America. And I had no reason to not believe that, because by the time, I suppose, we get to the next level, the Dingoes were gone and they'd gone to America. And I went, wow. And then I think 5 Times the Sun came out. That was the second one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just blew me away in the quality, firstly, but the sound and the creativity in there was just world class. And I thought, well, Jesus, they were right down at Duke. This was happening. But tell me the real story. We know the story about management and that, the Lynyrd Skynyrd thing and all that.
Yep.
And, we've all heard it. But you did play some big supports over there, didn't you?
Oh yeah, we did. We we
big
went over there.
stages.
We started out in Canada rehearsing until they fixed up all our visas and we went to the States, especially living in Mill Valley, California.
Yeah.
They made the record in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then they started us on the road, like doing little gigs around the place in the backwater, nowhere you're going to get known too much.
Yeah.
And then as we went on, the gigs got better and the supports we were doing got better, so we started playing the bigger crowds. It's all done very well.
Yeah, but now this was with A&M, is that correct?
A&M Records and Peter Rutch's management company.
Yeah.
And sure, we started working with bands like Tom Petty and
so you were playing in front of some pretty damn big crowds.
Yeah, big crowds and good places. We did Charlie Daniels on, I think it was Long Island or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
We were, and they very carefully, they chose the right acts for us to be with, which often is not the case they hear, where they just bunging on with whoever that happens to be in town.
Oh, yeah, complete waste of time. Yeah, you're playing with someone.
Whereas they had us with Charlie Daniels and with Tom Petty and acts like that we were complimentary to them.
Mm.
And
how did you feel when you played? Did you do some big arenas or whatever as supports?
We never got that was when it stopped because of the Skinner thing. Basically, we were going to start doing the big tours, but the clubs we were playing were like incredibly well known. They were known as showcase places.
Yeah.
And like the bands I just mentioned, there were many more, of course, and they were huge bands, but they would go to these places. They'd play the clubs. They'd sell records. They'd often record at these clubs because they had a better sound than the arenas.
Yeah.
So they were top. The places we played were the same as the top bands from England and America were playing.
You would have been playing around the same time the Eagles were doing their first record too,
right,
correct?
Yeah. Oh, the Eagles, when we were, just before we went to America, of course, the Eagles were huge. And I know road manager at the time would check his system with Desperado, which was a magnificent record at the time. But we got a bit fed up with it after a while. You walk into every gig we were going to do and there'd be Desperado playing. But that was a great record. Yeah. And when we got over there, of course, Hotel California had come out as well. And that was just massive. That was just huge. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely put you in that category. I mean, and I think if things could have been different, it would have been the Dingoes. There's no doubt. So we know that what happened with management and the death of a few members of Skinner and then was there no point of any return in that? Well, management had gone. You couldn't get somebody else, or it just all fell apart. What happened?
Well, the wind went out of it, obviously, because they'd lost main songwriters and players and singers, and with that wind along with Roger's main source of income, I would imagine. So there wasn't any money to spend on the Dingoes anymore.
Yeah.
And we sort of hung in, but it was fairly obvious that unless that record magically picked up and sold, we were going to be left behind, and that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
I think the band started to crumble. There was an album done after I'd gone.
So when did you? So 5 Times Sun's out, and then there was. Yep. I thought there was that third one which had some of the old songs on it and some new songs. Yeah.
Orphans of the Storm.
Yeah, it's Orphan. Yeah, it was kind of half-hearted in a sense, wasn't it? Because it wasn't all new.
Yeah. But I sort of, they used one of my songs on it, High Living. But I was gone by then. I went up to Toronto and joined up with Greg Quill, which is where I met Sam C, of course.
Right. Yeah. Greg Quill from Country Radio.
Correct. Yeah.
And but what had he been for people listening? Had he established a career over there as?
He was doing gigs, and he was also working as a journalist, which is kind of stock in trade, And he was just working on getting a record deal, but it was it became a bit tough. He wasn't making much headway, and when you're in a place like Toronto, which is freezing bloody cold and wet, and you haven't got much money, can get you down. So the long story short is that we came back to Australia to tour.
Yeah.
And
now when you say we, who are you referring to?
Yeah, well, that band that was that he had in Canada, which was Summer Country Radio, and myself and that. We came back here, and Sam and I think, decided that we had a better future here.
Sam C.
Yeah, Sam C.
Yeah.
And also, once you get used to nice weather, it's hard to go back. I couldn't live in England again unless I had the money to go to the south of France every time I wanted to. And it's the same with Canada. It's just too damn cold. I don't like it.
Yeah, gotcha. So you get back to Australia. So the Dingoes is essentially just about all gone. Yeah?
That's it, yeah.
And you're back here. So what do you decide to do?
Did the usual thing, just hunted around for players, and we eventually hit upon Quinn Mason, who wasn't doing much at the time. So we put together Stockley C. Mason with
sensational band.
Yeah.
I mean,
Dave Stewart and Jeff Rosenberg, and we went out, and once again we didn't have a lot of trouble getting work. We were doing pretty good, 5 gigs a week sort of thing.
Yeah.
And made a record, even made a promo film.
That's right, which Laneway got out, which is up on our YouTube channel.
And it's really, really worth a look, because the music that was recorded live is pretty damn good. I look back at that and think, it's pretty good.
Absolutely. So then what happens? So you're playing around to Stockley C and Mason. Why no second record?
I think it's one of those things you look back and think, well, maybe we were working so hard and non-stop, and I think we should have been able to take a bit of a break and recharge the batteries, but we just kept working endlessly. And I think in the end, Glenn sort of had enough of that, and he quit. And Sam and I struggled on for a while, and we tried some different singers, but it just didn't work. It wasn't the same. So we
I think too the other thing that comes into it is that you're all starting to get on. You're not in your early 20s. Most people probably married by that stage, or very firmly in a relationship. You need money. And all these things intertwine, and you're in this creative industry where you've got to be creative, and you've got to be a bit loose and whatever to be creative. Otherwise, it becomes formulaic, and that's very far and few between. If that starts to get was that the case too, that you were starting to get on and go, well, what am I doing? I need to get some money. I need to make some money.
Yeah, the album unfortunately didn't yield a hit single, and it would have been probably the best thing if we could have, as I said, taken a few weeks off, even a month off, and gone away and say, okay, guys, we need a single. We've got to write a hit, and if we can't get one, we'll find someone who can. I'm not proud. Let's do it. We just need a hit to keep on going, and that wasn't happen. That didn't happen. So we just basically fell apart once again. And I think what happened after that was, I had a holiday band called the Rock Doctors with with the guys from mainly from the Falcons.
Is that Jeff? Who's the guitarist?
Yeah, Jeff Burston.
Jeff Burston
first, and then Wayne.
Wayne Burt.
Wayne Burt.
Wow.
Of course, we had what's his name?
Gary Young on drums.
Gary on drums. Steve Williams on sax and harp.
Yep.
And of course, John Power on bass and huge vocals.
Was he? He was the bald guy on bass.
Yeah.
Just sensational.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Wasn't it? I mean, so you got the Rock Doctors happening as that was your side band, was it?
It was a holiday band, but then I think it was after Stockley C. Mason sort of folded. Yeah. I think maybe the Falcons had changed. Joe was probably off on another tangent, but whatever had happened, the Rock Doctors went on to become like a really burning band, doing 4 or 5 a week, and that once again, I was back to playing R&B and country again. It was great. I loved it. And we put out just like an EP type thing, which was really good. Great stuff.
So where to from there?
Okay, with the Rock Doctors, I think once again, you get stuck in that grind of doing 4 or 5 gigs a week, and very often it's the same gigs or every couple of weeks, and it just wears you down after a while. And then the band sort of crumbled, and everyone went their own way and started doing bits and pieces.
Yeah. So
I didn't have anything much after that until I got a call from Jim Barnes and went up and played with his first solo band when he quit Chisel.
Oh, yes, yeah. So this would be 80, maybe 83, 84?
Early 80s, I couldn't tell you exactly what year.
I mean, I was at Mushroom in 84, and the first album had just come out, probably 6 months prior, and so that was being toured. So, you're probably right, maybe, 82, 83, 83, I would think. And so you're doing the Jimmy Barnes thing, because I think Mal Eastick he came in too, didn't he?
Mal was playing guitar.
Yep, and then what happens from there?
Well, that went on for quite a while, but Jimmy, is always experimenting and changing players.
Yeah.
I mean, so my time come to an end.
Yeah.
And just what happened after that? Gee,
well, when did Hard Road start? That's more the mid-90s?
Okay. Yeah. I think Blue Healers.
That's a good record too.
Oh, yeah. Look, it was a great band. A little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah.
We were playing like pretty raucous country music. And at that stage, Tamworth was still pretty straight.
Yeah.
And I think that worked against us a bit. And also the fact that we weren't part of the Tamworth clique.
Well, would the Dingoes have ever clicked in Tamworth?
We should have. But I think what happened with the Dingoes is we nicked overseas.
Yeah.
When our time came.
Oh, well, they've taken control of Way Out West, that's for sure. That's,
oh, yeah. It's become a number one record twice.
So we got the Blue Healers. Now, who was the singer in the Blue Healers?
Leslie Averill.
Right,
yes.
Once again, who had her own career going, yeah?
Yes, that's right. And the reason I liked her voice so much for this was that she's got more of a soul voice than a country voice.
Yeah, exactly.
And it really suited what we were doing, because we were looking at, once again, it was a rock country band rather than a country rock band. It was a rock band that used country influences.
Yeah.
And then Hard Road was a similar thing.
Well, Hard Road. Now, I want everybody listening, if you get a chance, to have a listen to Hard Road. And while we're here, I'm looking it up on Spotify, right, Chris? Because it doesn't come up under Chris Stockley because it's not called Chris Stockley. It's actually Hard Road. The Journeyman, or just Journey Town.
Journey Town was the album, yeah.
For anybody listening, that is, and it doesn't get a lot of spins, it is one of the best records you will listen to. It is just fantastic. I mean, put aside that a lot of people used to say that it was a John Cougar Mellencamp band or whatever, and it does sound a lot like that style, but this is Australian and it's original. There is even Boy on the Run on there, and it is just sensational. And it was a great band, Chris, and what a shame we never saw any more records from that. I mean, did it work live?
Oh, yeah. See, what it started out, that was an era when cover bands started to come back. Right. And if you were trying to put a band together of any description, half your band would be in other bands. So getting together for rehearsal or to do gigs was almost impossible. You're always trying to find substitutes and relearn the repertoire because people all over the place. Yeah. So I had this idea. I said, what if you get the cover band and we make the original band exactly the same people, and we'll go out and do the John Mellencamp thing, and the money we get from that we'll put into our own recording as Hard Road of Country is what it was called initially. And that was the concept, and it was working. And Hard Road did get to do Tamworth a few times, and we were starting to crack it. I eventually quit because I had business problems on the other end of it. Won't go into that, but and I'd had enough of the road again, of course.
Yeah.
But it was really good, and I look back fondly on that record. I think it was really a good record. And once again, I think it may be a little bit ahead of its time. It was a bit too rock and roll for the country crowd.
Oh, definitely, yeah. This was American. And, this is an American record. An American record.
Yeah, I agree. And great vocalists, Danny and Gary are just sensational.
Yeah, no, this is for anybody. Do yourself a favour and have a listen to that. Hard Road, Journey Town. It is just fantastic. A really underrated record in the sense that it doesn't get as many streams. But so then from there, where do we go to? You have a bit of a hiatus, or what do you do?
Oh yeah, I disappeared for a while because I got involved in my wife's catering company. And
yes.
I sort of put down the guitar for a few years and did that.
And then you got back to your album, which is We Go to Chris Stockley, right?
That's right. I decided to. I was still writing a bit, and I thought, well, it's very hard convincing people to do your songs, and so I said, oh, bugger this, I'm working on these songs. If I can't get other people to sing them, and some of the songs we had recorded variously, I hadn't been happy with. I wanted to do different versions of them. So I thought, okay, better or worse, I'm going to put out my album, and that's my little statement. And ran into James Black in the street one day, and we got chatting, and he ended up producing the album, which we're very happy with.
Well, I don't. You said earlier in the piece that you don't enjoy playing on your own in the sense of just you and your guitar, but you are a songwriter, and you are a great guitarist also, and you're a good singer. All right, so I don't understand why you wouldn't go out now and just. It's Chris Stockley and write an acoustic record. I just don't get it because all the qualities are there. They're all there, and people want to hear more of Chris Stockley. So why not give them more? You can write hit songs because you've written them.
Look, I agree. I should be able to do it. The vocal was always my problem because when you've worked with like Glenn Shorrock, Brian Cadd, Jimmy Barnes, Broderick Smith, they're true singers. I mean, their voices are amazing. I just don't have the vocal chops they do.
Yeah.
I can carry a tune, and I'm okay singing my own stuff. So I do agree I could go out and do something like that. I wouldn't do it by myself, but I'd leave a small band sort of thing. And
but I'm not talking about live too. I'm saying about releases. So writing, so people can get a depth of Chris Stockley, and there's material coming out all the time. The concept in this new digital world, and I know they say streaming doesn't pay, but Laneway Music is strictly a streaming company. But we do have acts, and it probably comes back from to make money from digital streaming, you must be social media savvy. And that's what it is. Yep. Back in our day, it was the record company would do the marketing and promo because that's what your social media was. Well, whereas now you need to be social media savvy yourself, and it works. And it does cross-correlate, and it does then push the streams. And we have artists to prove that. And, you've got to be with it. And if you're not, it's very hard to get recognised. But put that aside, as you do get discovered, people want depth of catalogue. The concept of an album no longer exists. It's about a single. And it's you release a single and you release another single and you release another single. And when you get to 10, you put it together as an album. And it's constant. And there's a whole new way of how the business is working. Very difficult to convince people, but the young guys know it back, like the back of their hand, and they're doing it and milking it. But I say to people like Chris Stockley, why can't we get more tunes out of Chris Stockley and just release a new track every month and just and it's Chris Stockley on his acoustic guitar ripping out those tunes that you can write because you've written them before, and there's no pressure. And I lay down the gauntlet to say we would all love to hear more tunes from Chris. You're not done yet, Chris, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, we did. I put a record with Bram 5-track EP, which was pretty good. Problem with that, we really suffered from the COVID thing. I won't go through the whole years of COVID, but it slowed down the recording. It slowed down everything about it. And we had, get this, 3 attempts at a launch. Every one of them cancelled because of COVID. And
well, you know, Chris, at our age, we can't afford to lose 3 years, and we just lost 3 years.
Yes, I know. And so I kind of ended up with a bunch of CDs and T-shirts and posters and not much to do with them. Although I must say, recently we did a show at Broken Discs. You know, they and we went down, and because I've known Suzanne for a long time, and they've always been good to me, promoting my records and stuff. And we played. It was great. We actually managed to sell a few CDs and a few T-shirts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm still writing, and Brown was good because people in the band were writing too, and that was. I don't know if you've heard that record. Have you heard
No, I haven't heard that one at all.
I'll get you a copy, mate.
Oh, well, I must get a copy of that.
Yeah.
we must put it out on Laneway.
Yeah, it's not doing much because we screwed it up completely with. Well, we didn't. It was COVID and all the fact that we spent so much money and it was all down the drain in there.
Well, what we'd like to do with you at some stage too, I mean, I can talk about here while we're talking, is to, you know, we've been running shows at POM, and we're not promoters, so we get very stressed running shows with an audience, but we are going to run some more shows there where we are going to go live to Facebook and YouTube. And obviously, you know, it's a vision recorded, and people will be able to see our artists. So we are going to do that, and we would love to have you on one of those shows. And that's why I say to you too, I'd like to lay down the gauntlet. Why do you have to have a band? Why can't it be Chris Stockley with his acoustic guitar and be upfront and personal? You know.
You're a salesman.
Yeah, well, no, that's right. Well, we will discuss that off air and see what we can do. But we would love to see even one new song from you on acoustic guitar, just recorded at home. I mean, it's all achievable these days. So we've got bands on our label that have got a singer in Spain. There's someone in Newcastle, there's someone in Sydney, there's someone in Melbourne, and they just keep shooting around all their multi-tracks, and bang, there's the album. It's all done, you know, all the songs. Yeah. So everything's achievable, but we would love to hear some new music from you. So we lay down the gauntlet, okay?
Okay. You got it.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, Chris, and hopefully everybody's enjoyed getting a bit of history from Chris Stockley, and I'll use from Axiom and The Dingoes, the two biggest bands, and you know, and making a mark on the Australian music landscape. And I think you've got to be proud about what you've done, and we love your music. Okay.
Okay, and you must. I'll definitely get you a copy of that EP. It's really good. It's called "Dancing on the Heads of Snakes."
Oh, fantastic! And well, we'll be looking forward to it.
When you get it, have a listen to the lyrics, and you'll see. I'm still writing songs, and I think you'll like them on there.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for being on Laneway Talks, Chris, and we will talk to you again soon.
And there it is, another Laneway Talks. If you enjoyed that, there's more. Just search Laneway Talks for more great conversations.
G'day folks, Mark Ellen here and
the Ox, David Schwartz.
And we've started a brand new podcast called
A Couple of Blokes, A Couple of Beers, and we're just chewing the fat.
Couple of Blokes, Couple of Beers with Ox and Marco.
I'm thinking about whitening my teeth just so when I smile.
There's a new episode every Wednesday.
Have you got a weight issue?
Of course I do. It's a stupid loaded question.
A Couple of Blokes, Couple of Beers with David Schwartz and Mark Allen.
I'm eating the kids' Maltese.
You're eating their Christmas present.
I am a piece of garbage.
Listen wherever you get your podcasts.